Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon with many of the turf friends we've met over the past 35 years.
Hey everybody, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'm excited to see how it unfolds. I contacted Brent Downs this weekend. We've been friends for the last couple of years online and a little bit in person. It'll be interesting because Brent has his own podcast, The Lowdowns. Hopefully you get a chance to listen to some of his back episodes. He's a little newer than we are at it, but he's putting out some great content. I've really enjoyed your podcast. So this is the EarthWorks podcast for my side of it, and I'll let Brent do his intro as well.
This is the Lowdowns podcast with Brent Downs. And yeah, like Kevin just said, we are going to try something new. We've done this at other times where one episode was recorded than another, but we're going to see how this goes just having a conversation. But I'm sure you all know Kevin Hicks. And if you don't, he is an enemy to tall ceilings everywhere, one of the best woodworkers in the business, former superintendent, and an excellent one. And also, yeah, that pretty well sums up Kevin.
Wow, that's great. And Brent, you're in the Midwest, right, in Indiana.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about weather, I think, here in a little bit. But you've got kind
Yeah,
of a
wouldn't know why.
you've got a unique professional position. So explain to our audience who you are and what your role is at your respective golf courses.
Sure. I am the go about 45 minutes south of Indianapolis. You'll find a city called Columbus.
Okay.
And in Columbus, they have a really great private club and an excellent public golf course. The public golf course is Otter Creek, the private one is Harrison Lake. Recently, a few years ago, the Haddad family bought the Harrison Lake Club, and then 3 years ago, they bought the Otter Creek Club. And
Okay.
in the process, I was named director over both. So each course has its own superintendent, but yes, I serve as the director of agronomy over both. As the crow flies, they're about 15 miles apart. Columbus, one lane traffic in the middle of the day. It's solid half hour.
And you were at one or the other prior to this, correct?
Yes, I was the superintendent of the Otter Creek
That
site
that's
before
what
I
I
was
thought.
promoted.
Okay,
Yep,
cool. All right. So and you've been in that role for a couple of years now, right?
yep, promoted in fall of 23.
Okay. And we're going to talk about construction that you've got going on right now. You're right in the middle of it. So thank you for taking time today. That was I threw
Sure.
it out. I thought, well, this could be fun. Let's see if it works. And then I thought, man, his construction project's right in the middle. And so we appreciate you coming on today. This will be good. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. So
Sure.
you want to take a couple minutes and
Yeah.
run down your list?
Well, I'm curious, Kevin, what's the other side of the business look like? You were a superintendent for so many years, and I know you've probably answered this question 100 times, but what's it like? I mean, you've now been with EarthWorks, what, since 17?
Yeah, 8 years. I first of all, I appreciate you saying the other side and not the dark side because it is the other side. It's we
Right.
still serve the same industry and the same folks, and it's expanded my experiences with our business into sports turf, which is a side of turf management that I never touched a whole lot in my career. Lawn and landscape, which is a completely different animal, but we probably 40% of our business is in lawn and landscape industry. So the green industry as a whole is who we serve, but golf is still kind of the cornerstone. It's been interesting. I grew up in a family business, but was never in sales. But as Joel Simmons, my boss, would say, your job isn't to sell anything; it's to be an ear, and the sales will come later. And that's been, I took a call this morning from a longtime friend that down in California that's struggling with some stuff, and he didn't call the salesman, Kevin. He called the former superintendent just for ideas, and I love that stuff. It's been really good. So. Those are the upsides. Downsides, travel is not sexy at all. it's a tough part of the business. So I cover 13 Western states, and that keeps me pretty busy.
What, say more than anything else, is there a skill you would say from being a superintendent that is the one that was the most transferable?
Yeah, quite simply, I think being on both sides of the desk is something that's pretty unique. I feel as though I can still sit down and talk the talk, and relate pretty closely with turf managers in general. I don't know if you saw any of my posts this weekend, but I uh, I took the opportunity to volunteer for a good friend Troy Flanagan at the Olympic Club for the USAM this week,
I did
and
see that. I also
man.
saw Mr. Gourlay would like a word with you.
Yes, I know. I do. I doubt he listens to either one of our podcasts because he's kind of an elitist, but I do owe him a visit since it's my old club. But yeah, it was a good opportunity to scratch that itch, to be in
Sure.
tournament mode and get things going. Even if I was just in a supporting role, it was fun. So I think the relational thing, being able to really relate with um, with the trials and tribulations of being a golf course superintendent. I did it for 25 years. I've got my own scars for sure.
Right. All
So,
right. I'll kick it back to you now.
yeah, so I want to know a little bit about Brent. One of the things that's pretty unique to your experience is you're both a certified golf course superintendent and a master greenkeeper. So, I think there's under 40, right, in the country. So that's a
36.
yeah, that's a pretty high honor. Just a quick aside, I spoke with Gary Grigg at a meeting recently, who was I think one of the first in the country maybe to get
Was.
that accreditation, and he wasn't totally impressed with my side-eyed humor, but he said, one of the questions, because you're trying to take this written test to pass and get
Mhm.
your certification, one of the questions was more in UK speak, if you will, and it was an essay question. And it just said, describe meadow grass. And he looked at me as if he was going to stump me. And I said, well, I could have answered that in one sentence. And he looked at me funny. He goes, what do you mean? I said, it's great till it's not. But that's more of a U.S. answer than it is,
Oh, yeah.
or maybe a southern or transition zone like you are. But so why did you pursue that? What was the goal there?
Uh, Actually, Kevin, that's a tale of two cities. Uh, when I first began with it started with CGCS. I'll admit the pursuit was extremely selfish. And I don't think wanting to accomplish something is a bad thing, but it started off, okay, what can I hang on my wall? What can I add to my resume? And so it was just a natural progression as I became a superintendent
Sure.
and then later on a director. But I think later on, I went through a really tough personal stretch in 21, and it was funny. I had I ended up stepping away from both programs for a few months. And what they really became is, for lack of a better term, my climb out. But in the
Mm,
second act, I wanted to do it differently. Instead of it being just about me, I pulled Mitch in on so many parts of that, pulled my team. I had mentors in Gourlay, John Ballard, Wharton. And I think for me, it just became a part of a journey to know that I was going to be all right again. And when more so with the Master Greenkeeper, because it came second, the CGCS was 21, and that was like the start of the rebuild, if you will. And then the
okay.
MG was the end of it as far as my career goes. And it was just my way of knowing, okay, I can still pursue these things, but I'm doing it for different reasons now, just not to feed my own ego, which on some level we all have, but
Yeah.
you know, it was time to put it in a healthy place.
Well, I think speaking for the certified superintendent moniker, if you will, that's morphed over the years. I think, I had an opportunity when I came out of school in the early 90s to look at it, but it was also a point in the industry where gosh, anybody that came out with a diploma was on a meteoric rise to superintendentdom. It didn't take much to get there. Case in point, my experience, it didn't take much. So if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? But so it became maybe a little less important. I worked for a guy back in Minnesota that was an early certified superintendent back in the, gosh, I think in the late 60s he was certified. But there wasn't a lot of higher education opportunities, so that became kind of that replacement for it. And I think it was really important. I see it going back that way again now, where it's really important to get your foot in the door to have that. So had I been in that role at this point, I don't know. I never did pursue it, but it was also something that was always kind of in the back of my mind. And I got myself involved nationally and in different roles and different positions. But that has definitely kind of come full circle now, I think, at this point.
Well, I would totally agree. And yes, I agree with you that it's morphing back to what it was. But I also think I think we're in a society now where this has changed a little bit. It's not so much about the end game. Yeah, that's what you're part of it. But now that Mitchell's beginning his process, the superintendent of the Otter Creek site,
Hmm.
like enjoy the journey. Because believe it or not, some of the things I had to do is actually we've implemented them and maintained them to this day. So I'm like, take each
Sure.
step and enjoy it because you're going to look back and go, yeah, that wasn't all that much fun at the time, but you look back at it at the end and enjoy the people you get to take it with. Like I said, on my CGCS side, I went through with a couple other people at the same time. And also John Ballard at Valhalla, who was already a CGCS, just talking with him of, hey, what's this going to be like? What'd you do here?
Right.
And now that I look back, those are some of my favorite conversations.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I mean, it's
It really is.
joining a smaller fraternity, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were able to leave a mark of that process on the club,
Yeah.
as as a little bit of an imprint of that process is a pretty cool thing. What about Master Greenkeeper?
That was the most difficult industry thing I've ever done. I mean, I was desperate. That's why I had Gourlay as one of my two mentors. Boy, I mean, actively seeking out Gourlay, normally that's not something I'd wish on somebody. But
Sorry, Matt, but we both love you, but it's
we
an
do,
opportunity.
we
I
do.
will send him a copy of this, by the way, since we've mentioned him so many times.
Oh, he'll love it. That one was, I began really working on it after I finished CGCS. I had taken the test once, but because COVID had reversed the process, I took the test the first time before I got inspected. And like everybody not named Matthew Wharton, of course, I failed it first time. Second time, I got 1 out of 2. Third time, I finally got it. And I know there's some people who've taken it multiple times. Like you were saying earlier, just that grading was brutal.
Yeah.
I would say just what I learned, the stick to itiveness or the ability to just keep battling is what I really took away from that because it Deb Burnett is uh the MG director with Bega, and I have told her on multiple occasions, I don't know how you do your job because 95% of your master greenkeeper job is telling people that they didn't make it. And
Mm.
I'm like, boy, that's got to get old after a
So
while.
so the attrition
But
rate is that high? Wow.
yes, very.
Okay.
It is an extremely difficult exam to pass just because I remember the first exam I took and the person who graded it, and I actually mentioned him when I accepted the certification, Les Hawkins. He's like, Brent, it's a fine essay, but it's just not how a master greenkeeper writes.
Hmm.
I mean, we expect the very best of the best from your reporting. Like, it needs to look like it came out of an English professor's rubric. And I'm like,
Wow.
all right, I like this in the way that it forces me out of my comfort zone and really step up my game. I mean, yes, I feel I know what I'm talking about, but now I have to convince you I know what I'm talking about. And that was the next step.
So applicants at this point, or people that are going through the program, can just write whatever they want, plug it into AI, and have it come out in King's English, and they'll be good to go. Is that what you're saying?
And I would imagine at some point that's what they're worried about. That's why you're required to shut off your internet.
That's great. Well, it's a
Oh my God.
I'm curious as we've been talking about this. Do you have any idea how many in the UK or in Europe are certified as compared to US certifications?
It is a lower number, but I've heard I was on the CGCS committee for the usual 2 years of committee service.
Uh-huh.
And I know there are a few in the pipeline, and I think Shalia had told me, I can't remember if it was Shalia or Leanne, one of the two told me that the number was starting to pick up some
Okay.
because as more of them have become GCSA members and then they realize that they've met the criteria, I mean, hey, I'm a member anyway, why not? Right?
Sure. Sure. What about on the master greenkeeper side? Is that more saturated there, or is it still pretty unique?
I think it's still pretty unique.
Yeah.
I cannot, they are very guarded on that info, even though I'm
Hmm.
now in the club, if you will.
Sure.
I know of at least a couple of people who are working their way through it. They're in the exam stage, still working on it. But I know, I hate to say this, I know some people, because the commitment and the fact you probably, unlike Matthew Wharton, are going to fail a few times before you finally get there because you have to know how they want it written and things like that. It's, I think it's a lower, what I would call try rate or even make the attempt.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Interesting. All right, let's switch it back to you for a minute. Your list is longer than
okay,
mine.
my list is longer, but I can carry on a conversation because now I can turn this. Kevin, on your superintendent side, how did you get your start and where are some of your most memorable moments on that?
Oh, yeah, good questions. So I got my start.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to laugh. I say, well, you've done enough of these interviews. I'm sure people want to get to know you, not Dave Wilbur for the fifth time. I'm only kidding, Dave.
Well, I'm not normally in the hot seat. That's why it's a good question. I haven't had that question
Uh,
asked, but
That's right.
I've told the story a few times. I actually started toting golf bags when I was about 10 years old at a club that I'm now helping with a full renovation on in Minneapolis. So it's funny how life just kind of comes full circle. But so at 57, that means I've been in the business for 47 years. Um, I thought I was going to go the route of
Wow.
teaching pro at first. Was a pretty competitive golfer through college, and then decided that some of the, how should we say this, minutia of pro shop life wasn't really going to be for me. So I made the switch actually earlier than that. I made the switch in late in high school to join the maintenance team at that club, was at a country club, and never looked back. Happened to be at that time in the late 80s that I think it was 8 out of 10 of the top clubs in the Twin Cities were Penn State grads. And so that became a fairly obvious choice for me to try, and my boss was a Penn Stater, so try to get in. And you use Matt Wharton as an example, but not many people got into that program on the first try. But there's a funny story behind it. It's a good rabbit trail. So you mentioned rabbit trails are welcome on your podcast. So let's take a quick one.
I
I'll make it
am.
as fast
Let's
as
hit
I
it.
possibly can. So I got laid off in the winter, like a lot of seasonal guys did. So I had a couple months where I'd bust tables or just do whatever I could, work at my family business, just to make ends meet. And I had submitted my application. I think it was due September 1st or something of whatever year it was, 88, 89, 89 maybe. And I'm sitting around bored out of my skull. It's late February. I look at a buddy of mine and I said, "Hey, um, it's going to be another couple weeks before we get on the golf course. You want to drive out to Pennsylvania with me?" Now this is pre-navigation, pre-cell phone, pre-everything, right? So here's two dummies in a Mazda pickup. We take off cross country. No idea how long it's going to take. Um, Nothing. I've got the paper map from Walmart, and away we go. So we head out there, and all I could remember, because I had no electronic record of it, all I could remember was I had submitted the application to Dr. Don Waddington. So I get to the campus, and I remembered it was the Ag Science Building. I get to campus after a harrowing 18-hour drive. Early March, going across Ohio and Pennsylvania was not exactly a recommended road trip. But I
No.
get there, I hunt him down. He's in this classic basement office, the classic professor look, paper stacked to the ceiling, and I knock on the door, and he happens, I don't have an appointment or anything. So I've driven 18 hours with no appointment, no plan, no nothing. And he's in his office, and I introduced myself, and he said, Hicks. And I literally stuff stacked to the ceiling. He pulls up about 5 pages of paper and pulls my application out. We talk for an hour and a half, and my acceptance letter beat me home because I ended up going to Baltimore and spending a couple days with the buddy that I drove out with his family,
Sure.
and just crazy risk, I guess, or shot in the dark sort of story. So yeah, so once I got through school, I decided I wanted to try something different. I had done an internship in Colorado, loved out west, so I ended up in Arizona and spent 8 years there, and then moved to
Mhm.
Boise, where Gourlay is now, and took over that golf course, which was really really cool town, really neat membership. And then I ended up at Coeur d'Alene last. So that's the short version.
Yeah, outside the box, I mean, leave it to you to end up at a golf course that has a boat you have to take to get to a golf hole, right?
Yeah, or to mow.
Or to mow.
Yeah, and the funny story about that,
Uh,
I was sitting
And it,
in the turf conference at Penn State, and Steve Moss, the construction superintendent for the Coeur d'Alene Resort, I think he was like an 84, 85 grad, something like that, early 80s. And he was doing a talk on the construction of the floating green, which I have the slides downstairs um, of his slide deck, actually. And Steve and I got to know each other on the board for the Idaho chapter years later. But I remember sitting in that auditorium thinking, man, that'd be a cool place to check out someday. So, again, full circle, and it's funny how life kind of ends up if you just keep an open mind.
well, absolutely. I'll give you a full circle one for your side for a
Yeah.
minute. As I recall, you're good friends with Rick Tegmeyer, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's who did my inspection. And to say that Rick isn't a little bit intimidating might be a bit of an understatement as he rolls up on your site. I feel so bad for this. I was asking him so many questions in the lead up. Finally, he's like, Brent, chill. I will score you however I score you. And I'm like, okay, time to shut up now.
Yeah, he is larger in life in a lot of ways. I tell you, his handshakes are very memorable.
Oh, yes.
I consider my hands to be fairly big, but his hands are
Yeah.
gigantic. Yeah, great man.
Oh, yeah. I got stuck in the shake vice too.
A small story on him is his high school golf and basketball coach was my father-in-law. So that's
Wow, small world.
yeah, a town of 800 people, and there's like I think four or five superintendents that came out of that little city. So Rick being one of them, but yeah, uh, Greg Hurd is another one. You probably know Greg. He's in
No, the
Wisconsin now, but anyway,
Yep,
yeah. And again, it's just such a small industry when you really get down to it.
yep. So agreed. And I'm curious because you've worked in an area that I've talked to Matt some and he's talked about I don't typically associate Idaho with desert,
Yeah.
but I know it is. It kind of hooks in there a little bit. What's different about that? I
So
mean, yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting because most people that haven't been out this way don't realize that he and I are 8 hours apart. Same state, and you look at the map and you don't, but you can't get there from here is basically the short
Right.
story. So, and I've got two married kids that live in the Boise Valley now, so I know that route a little too well at this point. But um, His area,
experience.
yeah, his area, southern Idaho, is extremely dry. In fact, when I moved from Scottsdale, we had more days over 100 degrees in the Boise Valley during an irrigation renovation. Thank you very much. Than my assistant was my former assistant who took over for me was reporting to me from Scottsdale. So not only is it dry, but it's pretty darn hot. Matt got pretty lucky this last week. It wasn't 110 degrees where he was, but for the event. But yeah, I think it's not uncommon to be under 10 inches of precip down there. We're a little bit wetter, more forested up in the northern part of the state. I think we average about 26 inches of precip, but comparatively, that's July for you. So
Sure. Yeah. At
at
least it
least
has
this
been
year.
this one.
Yeah, at least this year for sure. So yeah, it's you all the way through Utah into Arizona, about halfway up into Idaho is really pretty dry, and a lot of Montana as well.
See, and now that you've said that, when you think about the hook into Utah, that actually makes sense. But every time before getting to know you all, I pictured Idaho.
I think we lost him. Should I sing the EarthWorks theme song here, Mike? I'm not sure what to do with myself right now. Okay, that was a 15-minute commercial break. Thank you to Xfinity for your non-sponsorship. We lost Brent for a few minutes, but he's back and better than ever. So where we left off before you departed us um, was you were talking about the desert climate in Idaho and Utah. I gather you haven't been out this way.
No, I have not. It's the one part of the country I've never been to and that I want to go to. But see, I always associate Idaho because the western half of the state butts up with Washington. So I just assume more of a Washington type climate, not realizing that coming in from the south, you have the Utah desert.
Yeah. Well, shoot, even if you follow kind of geography, there's that
Yep.
whole Snake River, Columbia River Basin is pretty darn dry. In fact, look at some pictures of one of my favorite golf courses, Gamble Sands, and you'll see nothing but um, desert scrub plants and no trees. I mean, it's truly a desert all through that area. And had it not been for the Columbia and the Snake Rivers, there wouldn't be apples in this country, I'm convinced. I mean, the agriculture that sprung up from those two waterways is pretty incredible.
Right. Like I said, you just, especially if you're not from that part of the country, you just don't realize, and the scope of Montana. That's one of the reasons I want to visit it. But I think people who've been there have told me there's no way to prepare you for just how big and how wide open all that area
And
is.
how diverse, Brent. I mean, it's pretty amazing to see, you get, in fact, one of my favorite drives in the country is from Missoula, Montana down to say Pocatello, Idaho, in that area. You go through four different climatic regions. It's incredible some of the scenery and the up into alpine and altitude and down. Altitude is everything out here. It dictates the weather, it dictates the heat and humidity and the whole thing. So it's a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah, it sounds that way. I've definitely got to put that on my list sooner rather than later.
Yep. Well,
So.
you've got a place to stop if you ever come out this way.
Well, I know a lot of your company's product has taken refuge in my shop, so it's may as well see where the sausage is made, right?
Well, it's in your it's in your backyard. It's in Seymour,
Yeah,
so
I
it's not
know.
too
I
far away.
remember. No, it's actually right down the street from where I live. That was the funny part.
Depending on the wind, you know exactly where it comes from, right?
Oh, all too well. If it's the if it's been wet and then suddenly windy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's throw it back to you for a minute since we're both kind of flustered right now after that loss of internet
Oh
connection.
yeah. See, we had this flow going and then that had to
That's
happen.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you decided to make the switch, what was it, as they say in The Godfather, an offer you couldn't refuse, or what, or was it just, as I've talked to a lot of superintendents, sometimes you just know I've done everything I came here to do. Now it's time to try something else.
Yeah, it was probably more of that. I kind of hit that bewitching hour when I mean it's not any secret that single owners like Poa are great till they aren't. When they get tired of you, you're out the door. And I knew that when I signed my contract with the owner of the Coeur d'Alene Resort that there would come a day that he would tire of me and ask me to
Mhm.
leave. And just so happened I had just turned 50. And I call it the bewitching hour because the history of our industry, by and large, I mean, there's certainly been some wonderful exceptions to the rule, but you're kind of old news at that point. And I had been fortunate. I got my first break as a superintendent at 24, and it was a top 100 golf course. So I kind of ran through my checklist, if you will, of goals pretty quickly, and so I just kind of figured it was probably time, like you said, to try something a little bit different. And EarthWorks was such um, an easy segue for me because it was a product line and a concept that I really believed in. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Okay. What, I guess, besides the travel, what what are your favorite memories from being a superintendent, though? I mean, and what do you draw upon when you, even if you don't get scratch that itch like you did at the Olympic Club? I mean,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite memories from that time?
So timely answer to this would be mentoring people coming into the industry. And I say it's timely because I just had Charlie Aubry on a couple weeks ago on our podcast, and he's hosting the Tour Championship. Nothing makes me prouder than I think I was at 48 assistants and interns through the years, and almost all of them are pretty successful superintendents at this point. So, even if I had just a small piece in that, it's like raising kids. It's your proudest moments trying to get those folks to their end goals as well as your own.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing how that works out? Is it feels like as young men, you're always taught, like I said about my CGCS, it was another hide to put on the wall, basically,
Mm.
or whatever. But these days, several years later, that I look back on that and I'm like, wow, that was selfish, but you had to go through that. And then you realize your best joy is watching Mitch win Superintendent of the Year, Corey
Yep.
win the Carnegie Award, not just awards, not just physical things, but how they've taken over each one of those
Yeah.
properties and made it their own.
More legacy kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's
It really
at the end
is.
of the day, I think the best folks in any industry, the best managers or the best bosses, if you will, are the ones that want nothing more than to see their people underneath them move on and succeed themselves. I think the ones that don't approach it that way are really missing out.
Sure. Oh,
So
I couldn't agree more.
yeah,
That's just so much more fulfilling, in my opinion, than chasing it for yourself. But it's almost like you gotta learn that in your own time.
yep, yep. Building a team is the thing I miss the most, but it was also the most exasperating thing at
Sure.
times. So it's double-edged sword.
Well, I mean, who doesn't want to sign up a job where you're part therapist, part accountant, and you get to
Yeah.
do it in a barn? How cool is that?
Yeah. It's the counselor thing is no joke. I find
No, it's not.
myself on a lot of calls with superintendents or turf managers in general that they just need someone to talk to. And if I can be that to someone and help and kind of walk through something with them that they're dealing with, all the more reward for me. I think it's just great to be able to have an ear for someone and to know that that I'm somebody that they're thinking about reaching out to is pretty rewarding. So
Sure.
yeah, that's been by far the best thing about this gig is just being able to maybe put some of that experience to use in somebody else's operation.
Yeah. I It's funny you were talking about, well, this really isn't a sales position. And the more reps I've gotten to know that I become really good friends with, many of them say that exact same thing. the product sells itself. My goal is to become a trusted resource for
Yeah.
you. And if I do that, then, and I can say this with my own operation, I if I trust the people making the product, I know the product is going to follow them
Yeah.
every time.
Anybody can take an order. The ones that I work with that are relational with their clients are by far the most successful.
Sure.
By far. And it stands to reason. It makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the same as if you run into a snag on one of your courses, you've got a handful of people that you'll reach out to because you know you can get a straight answer from them, whether it's what you want to hear or not,
Mm,
right?
100%. And with whites, probably more so than Sims, my two mentors, Matt and Justin. Matt calls it as he sees it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that sometimes when you're working for him, boy, can he drive you up a wall. But then you realize later on, no, he was just pushing
Right.
you.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Um, okay, so I'm going to take a little bit here. What
Yep.
talk about the construction project you're under right now, the scope, and then I did give you a couple of bullet questions, but the thing that's really the thing that's really been interesting to me is talking to folks like yourself that are either going through or have gone through a renovation or some kind of major construction project. And I want to know what went well and what you do differently because there's a lot of construction going on right now. And if we can leave, one thought in somebody else's head that, okay, I gotta remember to make sure that, that's checked off before this is done. So what's gone really well and what would you like a do-over on?
Sure. Well, we're still in the relatively early stages. We're about 3 months in,
Okay.
and Kevin, it is a full redo. We're staying true to the original Trent Jones design, but we are updating the whole thing. This is not a regrassing. This is a full renovation. We have three holes in a floodplain that are about to go away because we own 40 acres on the west side of the property that's
Okay.
more of a natural fit for the property. So
Okay.
we're going to create three new holes there, 15 of the original 18. Our design team's going to follow the Trent Jones spirit on those holes, but the course was designed in 64. It's
Sure.
time to players hit at different distances.
Yep. Yep.
And then our former East Nine, that is becoming a par three and a chipping course. Think Wee Links at Turnberry, things like that. So the my owner had the greatest concept, especially Columbus is a wonderful place to raise a family. He always called it a cradle to a grave concept. We catch the families when they're young and then bring them up through their various skill levels up into the championship otter course.
Brilliant.
I love his concept
Yep.
there, especially for a public golf course.
Yeah. So I'll interject for a minute. I'll contrast that with the last owner I worked for. The pro and I were trying to introduce some kind of a junior golf program, and he looked at us both just incredulous and said, "Kids don't have money." Talk about a short-sighted vision. And the guy was an absolute visionary. And yet to look at it that way, I had never been more frustrated. That was so disappointing to hear. And so as it is encouraging to hear that your ownership was thinking long game.
Yep.
I mean, we have to have entry level opportunities for young people and new folks to the game. I think it's imperative that we do that, even though it may not be, the big profitable thing that sells lots and
Yep.
lots of real estate. We've got to have those gateways to get into the game.
Well, Kevin, it's funny. We're no different than any other business. Our goal is to be profitable, but I'm like, I can make you profitable tomorrow, but I don't think you're going to a long-term result on that because I'm just going to cut everything. I'm like, there's a difference between profitable and sustained profitable.
Yep,
And even with the people you're trying to grow into the game, that's a sustained growth. That is not, like I said, you may not think they have money right now, but they grow into adults that do. And not only that, they bring their friends. So
100%.
yeah, you take care of them when they're young, build their love of the game, which you would do anyway. And
Yeah,
then that becomes the best four walls marketing you could ever have.
I think it's one of the biggest losses uh, in the industry to have lost, by and large. I know there's still some available, but to have lost the concept of a caddy program, and not, I'm not talking the
I agree.
Augusta, the Augusta or Coeur d'Alene Resort, the professional caddies that are contracted in Coeur d'Alene and then they go down to Palm Springs in the wintertime to work their gig. That we need that too, but that, where else is a 12-year-old kid going to get an opportunity to spend 5 hours interacting with the community's business people? Nowhere. And it was
Nowhere.
such a unique opportunity for me to get, and I'm so incredibly thankful to have had that opportunity. And a lot of my friends that were in that program at the time, several of them were Evans scholars, so they not only learned how to interact, but they got a free ride to college as a result of their time schlepping bags around the golf course. So I think it's a big miss in our industry to not have kind of that gateway as well. In sales, we call it a pipeline. We got to
Yep.
create as many
Mm,
pipelines as we possibly can to keep the business going.
yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And just, I mean, think what kind of passion that builds if you're watching people play, carrying their bags around at 10, and how many other 10-year-olds, at that time maybe had a job. So
Right.
you got to see something, you got to grow with it as you got older. And
Yep.
yeah, I really think in this generation something gets missed there.
Yeah, my youngest is 19, and he looked at. I told him the story the other day that, you know, getting a loop in the morning was a first come first serve kind of concept, and so I would leave the house at 4:30 or 5 in the morning to get to ride my bike to the golf course, so I'd get first in line because if I got first in line, I could get another loop in the afternoon. And he looked at me like, "You're out of your dang mind, Dad."
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Um,
But, again, like you said, where else is a 12-year-old kid going to get a job that you can make? I mean, I think 13 was my first year I could carry two bags and I made, so this was what, 1983? I made $8,000 that summer. Where else is a 13-year-old kid going to make 8 grand today, even in today's
exactly.
dollars? It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. So, but
No, it's not.
that's all, that's all behind us now, unfortunately. So, okay, so let's get back to, so, total redo.
Yep.
What's so far, are you phasing or are you just kind of mass Xing everything or?
No, it is a phase. I'm going to call it a phase plus. Phase
Okay.
one is we're building the three new holes over on the west end of the property and the new driving range.
Okay.
That new driving range did go a little bit into old 18, so we built a temporary green, and Mitch, gosh love him, I could argue that green's as any other green, and he literally started mowing it out of the fairway maybe 6 months ago.
Okay.
So um,
Cool.
so that's phase one. Phase two, our former East course is becoming the par three course and the chipping course. We call it the pup. So our pan scrapers are already over there now moving soil, and pretty soon the shaper will be heading to that side too. The three new holes and the range are close.
Okay.
And then next year, or whenever they're ready, Kevin, we have taken the approach, and especially I've attended some of the USGA seminars on this, and that's one thing they always say. And again, I have an owner that agrees. Don't try and be collecting pennies from the faucet while your contractor's off to the side costing dollars.
100%.
So when they're ready, let them go because I'm telling you, you'll be thankful you did on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. It's hard to exercise that level of restraint, but it's going to pay off in the long term for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many projects I've seen rushed and not ready for the action of daily play. And
Yep.
then, and it's been my advice to anybody, hey, I don't care if you're seeding or sodding, she looks great until you trample 200
Mhm.
sets of feet across it every day, where it's never seen that kind of traffic. You better be prepared for that because invariably a golf course, especially greens, will take a step back when they're under that day-to-day, regular routine and regular traffic regime. They're still babies. They're not ready for that kind of traffic. So
Yep.
good for you. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. You asked what's gone well. I would say what's gone well happened a year and a half ago, and it is
Yep.
my owner and his group think effort in putting the team together,
Hmm.
because each piece of the renovation team somebody had a relationship with. Meaning Mitch and I go all the way back to Victoria National. He was an intern, I was an assistant, and I always hoped we'd get the opportunity to work together again. And
Yeah,
you know how this business is.
of
Those
course.
those crossroads happen more often than you think.
Yep.
But we both came through Augusta National. I was in, turf grad AIT there, and then Mitch later on after Victoria followed that same path. And so the design team we chose, Tom Kite and Billy Fuller, another home team intersection. Our irrigation installer Tanto, Tim Clark was my roommate down there.
Mm.
He's now their VP. So, and then Wadsworth, our general contractor, they built Harrison. So Bob knew them from that place. And I'm like, each stage of this, we had a relationship that was already formed. And
Yep.
as I told you, the longer we do this, there are many talented contractors, but not contractors you've already worked with. Like Tim and I, go back. Mitch and I, if we're discussing something with Billy Fuller and Mitch is like, "Oh, you're picturing 8 green at Augusta National," and or whatever,
Right.
like how we're doing the mounding. It's we all speak the same language. Or like with Wadsworth, Bob can say to Pat, "Hey, picture something on to Harrison Lake," and the bang, the concept's right there.
So
So
because of familiarity, you've got a really, really healthy line of communication with everyone. And that's
very much so.
when things break down, that's when I see things go pretty badly. You
Yes.
know, and it usually happens between contractor and whoever's on site
Yep.
managing the project. So yeah, really
Well, there's
important.
just a certain level of built-in trust that
Yeah.
comes with that you already know. And even with Billy, no, I knew who Billy was. I mean, obviously having worked there, but the fact that there's that kind of that bond of being part of the same family, just at a different generation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what have been your hiccups so far? Weather.
Rain. Yeah.
Weather.
And Kevin, that has been the big one. And you said, what would you change? I I don't know that there's anything I could, with this exception, and it couldn't be done this time. Knowing what we know, I wish we'd have brought irrigation in later.
Mm.
But Tantos, I mean, those guys are booked out 3 years too. So we were lucky that they found a 3 month gap for us this year.
So you're talking
Um,
install, not the materials.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, meaning that they've had to kind of work around Wadsworth a little bit while Wadsworth was still finished shaping. They were installed because they're on a schedule too.
Yeah.
Now, I think the advantage is that Wadsworth will then have several months to get back ahead of them, because you've been a part of enough projects. A good irrigation team, boy, they can lay some line in a hurry.
Big time. Big time.
Yep.
And it's
So,
fun to watch a team that's
oh, it's
clicking on all cylinders for sure.
It really is. Just, I mean, there have been times I've seen where they were in the morning. I checked a few other things. I'd circle back to them in the afternoon. I'm like, I went back to close to where I thought they'd
I
be, and
thought you
they're all
were
the
on
way down the
three and you're
hole.
on five.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, where'd they go?
Yeah. I marvel at the clubs that try to do something of scale in-house. When you've watched enough contractors, especially like you said, irrigation contractors work, the equipment they come with, the know-how they come with, I just don't know how you can justify any savings in time or money. And because you're clearly sacrificing something else on the back end to put your staff in charge of that stuff. It's just, and obviously clubs are different, but any of those contractors, to see them, bunker contractors
Yep.
any of them, they're so good and so specialized at what they do. Um, they'll
Yep.
they're well worth the investment for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I go back. I'm going to use one of those nerdy business terms, but it completely fits here. It's their core competency. Mitch
Yes,
and I's core competency is growing grass.
right.
Like the minute that seed hits the ground,
I got
that's
this.
I yeah. It's like you read about like old riverboat captains in the South. Each one of them knew their section of the river,
Yeah.
and I view it like when the seed hits the ground. I
Right.
mean, Mitch and I are kind of on the riverboat watching, but when the seed hits the ground, that's our part of the river. And if you're smart, you've got people who are experts in each section of the river.
Yeah.
That's what you hope to build.
That's a great analogy. And I think the most successful contracts draw that line right there instead of having, the contractor responsible through the first, say 3 mows or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Just as soon as the seed's on the ground, we got this because that really is your wheelhouse.
Hmm.
Uh, that's good stuff. I think contractors, if you're doing any projects of any scope, like you said, if you can get them, because they're
Yeah.
extremely booked
Oh,
out
yeah.
right now. If you can
Yes, they
get them,
are.
that they're worth their weight in gold for sure.
Well, it's funny. It seems like on our side of the business, you have different eras of golf, and we are definitely, this is not the build era. This is the renovation era.
For
And there
sure.
are a lot of them. And Kevin, believe it or not, for us, I've said this analogy too. The second mouse gets the cheese. I'm actually glad a lot of clubs have went in front of us, like Vaquero going 2 years ago. Mitch
Right.
and I spent a couple days with Matt and asking those same questions. I got to learn what everybody else said. That key question: if you could change one thing, what
Yeah.
would you have done? Say from we got advice from PGA Frisco. Make sure you're taking notes from day one because you never know. Even if you don't think you need them, how many times we'd flip back to day two and like, didn't we install that here?
Right.
Stuff like that.
And I
Just the
think
things
no,
you don't think about at the time.
and notes on, in particular, the guys that I talked to that have taken pretty copious notes on the irrigation install specifically, because
Yep.
an as built can very quickly become an as
I mean,
drawn.
as a remember.
And now all of a sudden you and Mitch are left holding the bag on something
Yep.
that was here on paper and it ended up in reality over here, and nobody's got a
That's
record
right.
that's worth anything. So yeah, good,
That's one of my
really good
favorite quotes.
advice.
Is it an as built or an as remembered?
Yes, yes. Because remembered doesn't last long. I call them as drawns.
That's so funny.
All right, I'm going to throw it
Oh
back
my.
to you.
Okay, no, we're gonna get off the golf course and we're gonna get
I
off
like it.
the sales for a little bit. I'll just go ahead and ask the question for the audience, though we both know the answer. So, Kevin, you have any hobbies outside? I
I don't
mean,
know that
maybe
everybody knows this, but you and I share a hobby in woodworking, and
yes, yes, we do.
it's somewhere between a hobby, a passion, and an obsession. I don't know where it
Session.
is. I've seen some of your work, you've seen some of mine. I think we're on a parallel right now that I think
Oh yeah.
whenever I do hang up my turf manager hat, that's going to be a shingle I try to hang out, and there's so much opportunity. You've got you've got big cabinet companies and furniture manufacturers, and then you've got a lot of needs that are a lot smaller than that. And I've already been able to fill that void a little bit with my local community, and it's amazing. I don't expect to make $1 million at it, but it's just such a passion of mine. I've told the story one other time, but my grandfather had a full wood shop in his converted greenhouse attached to his house back in the day, and he used to have me on the drill press cutting out these little circles, and then he would take them to the engraver, and he had a good sense of humor, and he would engrave the letters TUIT on the circles. And he'd always carry those in his pocket so that if somebody said, "Hey, I'll do that when I get around to it," he'd pull one of those out, TUIT, round to it, and he'd hand them to him. There you go. There's your round to it, and get it done. So that was kind of my intro to
Oh,
woodworking,
that's
and it's
so good.
it's always been something that I've enjoyed, and just that smell of sawdust, and
Hmm.
and I think it scratches our creative itch too, right? I mean, a lot of us, I think, are pretty
Beat me
creative
to it.
minded. And I just finished a project that, I told my wife it was the first thing that really was complete conceptual, and it actually turned out exactly how I had envisioned it, with no plan, no nothing. I kind of barfed it out onto the workbench, and there it was. So it worked out really well.
Yeah. Well, I think, Kevin, our job or our career, going back to your superintendent days, it gets said so much. It is both an art and a science, and
100%.
I completely agree with that statement. But I think at the highest levels, you become very procedural because that's how you maintain your efficiency. I
Yeah.
mean, you're creative in your problem solving, but your day to day is the best ops I've been a part of are very down the line, very
Yep.
structured, very ordered. And I didn't realize it at the time when I first got into it. And my dad built cabinets. And then I wasn't that interested because as a kid, it's not cool to do what your dad does.
Of course.
That itch came later. But for me, I didn't even realize it came about. Hey, I have this little nook and cranny. I'd like a piece of furniture for it because nothing I see in stock will fit. And that stuff all looks kind of mass produced anyway. So I
Yeah.
wanted to make my own unique things. Then I realized I'm like, oh, that's my creative outlet because at work, I, I love being creative and problem solving, but if we're at our optimum, we are checking boxes.
Well,
And in the workshop, that's your chance to look at something and go, wow, I think I can make something out of that.
yeah, yeah, and the further you get into your career, like it or not, the further away from that creative
Yep.
sensibility you get. I mean, you're forced into that procedural mentality, and
Yeah.
any operation is because you're working with people, and so you
Yeah.
have to
Oh,
have
yeah.
standardization, and you have to have some procedure in order for things to work properly.
100%.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's and even more, I'll even take it one step further. Even sometimes if you're building a cabinet, you can do different things with that, but the process for the most part's the same. Where I've discovered, and I never in a million years, my mom bought me this class as a Christmas gift, and at first I had no interest. The turning on the lathe, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, I love building, but that's kind of a 50s and 60s, tool. Boy, was
not
I wrong.
so.
Because no, not a bit. And it's amazing our biases, right? I mean,
And
I
and
had a
I'm curious to know why you say that. Why that's become an interest. And I think it's going to be the same answer I give.
what with the lathe.
Yeah.
Just you can do. There are no limits to the lathe. Like
Yeah.
you can create something that has never been seen before. And I would say that's even more true, say, than if you're building a cabinet because cabinets still have square edges. Well, if they're built right, I would hope that they do, right? Still have 90
Yeah.
degrees and all that. You take, say, you want to make a mallet. There are no limits to how you can
Yeah.
make that mallet. Yeah, there may be a general shape, but you can put any kind of creative touch on that thing you want, depending on your gouge, your inlay, your skew chisel. You can go wherever you want to with that
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. You didn't go where I thought you'd go. And for me, it's kind of a reset. If you're in a long project,
That's
it's
also
something you
true,
can
though.
you can start to finish in one session. And I think
Mhm.
that sometimes I need that, to kind of break up my train of thought on another project. So that
Oh yeah.
that's my outlet for sure.
Yeah, I mean there is usually, especially on a small turn, there is a little quicker gratification because if
Yep.
you're building a table or something, that is not an afternoon build, but a
Right.
project on the lathe can be.
I may need that because that's one of the things that took the longest to adjust to in my current role.
Yeah,
Every day when you leave the golf course and you're inching away from that yourself in your
I
current
am.
role,
I
every
am.
day you knew whether you had a good or a bad day. For me, it's very delayed gratification. It might
Yep.
be, especially as a manufacturer rep, you know, a rep that calls on you, he knows if he wrote an order today or he
Mhm.
helped you in something. Whereas for me, it could be months before I'm able to pick the fruit that I planted the seed for, 3, 4 months prior. So
Yeah.
I think the woodworking thing, especially wood turning, is something that kind of gives me that instant gratification we're so used to getting on the golf course.
Well, I'm gonna turn a quick rabbit hole, and this is where I knew I was more removed than I thought, but in the best ways. We have an Epson event at Otter Creek every
Hmm.
year. And over the years, Mitch has taken more and more ownership of the day-to-day at Otter Creek, which is what I wanted all along.
Absolutely.
Well, in this tournament, and at the same time, we have the Reno going on, but they're still in the early pan scraping stage. So I just kind of observe at that point that you let the earth movers do their job. But at various points during that tournament, the tournament director would come down to the shop. Hey, is Mitch around? I'm like, no, he's off checking this. Is there anything I can? And it got to a point where I'm like, hey, I'm here. You need me to rake a bunker? Or
I,
hey,
I'm sorry, who are you?
yeah, that's what it felt like. I mean, it was the best feeling in the world because I'm like, wow, this is really his now. But
Yeah.
at one point, I'm like, hey, you need a bunker rake or did something?
Yeah, you probably had to check yourself a little bit between frustration and pride, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
wait, but
a little
but
bit.
I'm Brent. I'm the guy here.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
No, no, and it's I said this in another I forget who I was telling this to. I'm like, but isn't that the way it's supposed to go? Because at some point, I throughout stages of his career, not the whole thing, but I've been in a mentor role to Mitch. But at some point, this if the teacher does his job right, the student always surpasses the teacher.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Yep. Goes right back to what we were talking about early in this conversation. Okay, so I'm going to let you wrap up. Since
Okay.
I've kind of checked my list off, I'm going to let you wrap up with whatever, we only got halfway through your list. So
Well,
even with our 15-minute commercial break, we're probably up against our time now.
sure. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to drop a couple of my other games. I'm actually going to run my new one with you
Okay.
because since we share an interest, we're going to play Four Down Territory. This
Okay.
is a game where Kevin and I'm going to throw a question out there, and Kevin already knows the question. Um, and then we're going to put them out. And I know not everybody in turf is a woodworker, but those that are, we'll be curious. At some point, I'll put this on social. We'll see what your feedback is.
Yeah.
Kevin, for Four Down Territory, what are your four favorite tools in the shop?
Mhm. So I've got a new favorite tool. Um,
Oh, okay.
I've recently acquired through Facebook Marketplace a used domino joiner. Um,
Oh, I'm so jealous.
while it's taking so of course, instead of joining two 90-degree pieces for my first try, I had to do a 5-degree bevel on something, which took a whole nother set of thought processes to get done. But really, really impressed with that tool. German engineering at its finest. It's easy to use, um, really good. So that's one. I continue to be impressed with my table saw upgrade to a saw stop. Even if you're not into woodworking, you've seen the videos where the developer feeds his finger live into the saw blade,
Saw
and it
blade.
retracts in a split second. I deployed my first cartridge recently, and I told the guy
I
when I
saw that. I saw you posted
yeah,
it.
I told the guy when I bought the replacement, I said it's both faster and louder than I expected. Um, what my MIDI lathe that I inherited from my stepfather has been
Okay.
really a cool addition. And fourth, man, fourth, I would have to say, um, I'm in the throes. I'm hoping, how about this? I'm hoping my fourth is my upgraded DeWalt planer that I've got torn apart on the
Mm,
workbench right now. I'm putting
all
a,
right.
a helical cutter head in it right now. So I'm hoping that becomes my fourth favorite. How about yours?
Okay. When I get to number four, this answer is probably going to shock you because you know a little bit of my history here. My first is like you, my table saw. Knowing what I know now, do I wish I had a saw stop? Yes, I do because of the safety. But feature to feature, I have a Powermatic PM 1000
Oh,
cabinet,
nice.
and I absolutely, like I said, put the brake in it, and I almost
Yeah.
think it runs side by side with the
Yep.
saw stop.
100%.
Yep. Number two is actually my joiner that I also picked up this year, the 8-inch South Bend. I mean, just dead square corners. And
Yeah.
this is really these last couple years, this has been the first time I haven't been buying S4S. That's for everybody else, that's surfaced all four sides.
Yeah. Home Depot
Doing
stuff.
your own milling just gives you so much more ability to customize and
You're right.
go where you want to go.
You're right. Yeah.
Number three, and I built this in a class, and I'm still, even though, yes, we had a lot of help, my Ralbo workbench, that thing can clamp anything.
Oh, cool. I didn't know you had one of those. Yeah,
I'll
that's a
send you a
project.
picture. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, let me put it this way. We did 8 benches in the class. There were 8 people in it. Let's just say each bench, when we loaded it into the person's vehicle, it took 4 of us.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not for the faint of heart moving those things
Yep.
around.
My fourth now, and boy, I never would have pictured this answer 2 years ago. It's actually my hand planes.
Mm,
Not because when I took that period woodworking class, I'm like, I wanted to go through the whole class. I'm like, they invented bandsaws for a reason on those tapers, right?
yeah,
But what that class taught me is no, do I necessarily want a hand plane all the way? No, I'd rather bandsaw to the line.
sure.
But I'm telling you, the more I use those planes, there's nothing better for that light fine tuning on something. You
But
need to make that.
it's because of something else you had to have learned in that class. Sharpening, right?
Oh yeah,
Until
100%.
you learn how to tune and
Yep.
sharpen, there's no
Yep.
point in using those.
Yeah, no, and in a way, that my woodworking teacher, her name's Amanda. She is amazing, but that's one of the lessons she taught us because normally she sharpened it for every class. I mean, that was
Hmm.
part of the class, but she does it intentionally. She says with every class, it's an 8-week course. She's like, one of the weeks I will intentionally not sharpen and see how long it takes you to figure out that's the problem.
Oh,
And in
cool.
ours, it was like week 4, and I'm just sitting there
Something
trying to, I'm
wrong
like,
here.
what in the, like, did I lose half my strength? And then she's like, flip that over and tell me what you see on the blade. And I'm like, you are evil.
I don't see me. I know that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's exactly.
I would agree.
But
I think atrophy is probably a good word for my sharpening skills. I need to just start out my
yeah,
long sessions by sharpening something just to stay in the groove for sure.
yeah, it just amazing. And it took this class for me because I'm like, planes, they invented power tools for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got that one tiny high spot on something, you know, you can, somebody you're building it for may never notice it, but it's going to drive you nuts because
Yeah.
you're the one that built it. And the plane is just bust that out, make a few passes, you've got it. And I'm like, I never realized that is your fine tuning piece.
And there's no better way to connect with the workpiece either.
Exactly.
It's
Yep.
slow, it's quiet, it's
Hmm.
personal. But you could relate that to the turf industry. I mean, if you don't have a sharp chainsaw or you
Yep.
don't have a sharp cup cutter, the work becomes a whole heck of a lot
Yep.
harder,
Yep.
and more
Hitting
dangerous.
turf with a baseball bat as
Yeah,
opposed to a sharp blade.
exactly right. Exactly right.
Yep.
So
So, well, folks, after this episode gets posted, we'll put this online for you woodworkers in the industry. Yes, you, Kevin Sunderman, and folks like that. If you want to give us your feedback. Although these days, I mean, Kevin's too corporate now. I'm not sure he remembers how to use those tools. So,
not true, not true.
yeah, no, I know.
And Woodworkers of
Kevin,
Turf on X. If you're
that's
interested in
right.
following a bunch of really, really creative and talented people, we've got a pretty good following on there. So
Yeah, you do. And
yeah,
that's it. It's almost been so cool. I mean, for the longest time, I didn't know that was you. And then eventually I'm like, oh wait,
I know this guy.
this guy
Well,
sounds familiar.
it's not intended to be me. It's intended to be for the industry. So that's why I
Mm,
named it what I named it. But yeah.
yep.
Okay, so this has been the Lowdowns and the Earthworks podcast for a first ever mashup, and I think this went, besides our internet hiccup, this went about as well as I could have expected.
Yeah, I think so too. And it makes for a great intermission.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I should have taken a potty break while I was waiting for you to
That's
get back
right.
up. So yeah, cool. Any parting words? Anything we need to know about the project coming up, or when do you expect to open? Obviously, it sounds like it's a little bit fluid, and that's good.
It is a little bit. If I were to tell you we have a targeted date right now, it's Memorial Day of 27, but we'll see
Okay.
how everything grows next year. And that's again having a supportive owner. We hope to have the driving range open next year just so people can get an idea.
Yeah,
And they can come see the 3 new holes. We're not going to let anybody play them until the
sure.
whole course opens together. But I think if we go right, and here's the thing, Kevin, I feel we built the team. If it can be done, we can do it.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt from the very beginning.
Well, I'll tell you an amazing conversation that I had with Charlie Aubrey. To think about your project and the timeline and his project, which was essentially a complete reno in 11 months. Can it be done? Yes, I would imagine there were some sleepless nights in that project and the folks involved because
Yep.
it just boggles my mind to think that you could blow through a golf course that quickly and do it well. But we'll know this week how well he did
Yeah.
because it's the place is flawless. He does a great job. So,
Yeah.
well, great.
No, that's really my only parting. Just and on the heels of Dan Grogan and I talking, that episode will be out today. But just for those of you who, especially in the Midwest, who've kind of gotten bogged down in the summer, just hang in there.
Yeah,
Everybody's got scars, and if somebody tells you they don't, they're lying.
yeah.
So
I've I've
just
I've got a bit of a bone to pick with you on getting Dan on the podcast because he agreed 2 weeks ago, and he's been ducking me because of weather and other delays. So, Dan, if you're listening, you still owe me, buddy. So,
oh yeah, no, he'll hey, that'd be a great follow here
yeah,
because he is. Oh, I'll tell you off the air. Well,
okay.
anyway,
Well,
got this
Brent
far.
Downs, I appreciate you doing this. I think I don't know how all the editing is going to work on both sides,
Sure.
but I appreciate you jumping on, and I think hopefully it'll be interesting with the exception of maybe the woodworking vortex we went down. But
Yeah, we'll lose a few there.
yeah,
Well,
we'll
that's
lose a couple. At least we
yeah.
waited until the end on that. But appreciate you coming
Hey,
on.
glass is half full. Maybe we get a couple people interested, right?
Yeah, yeah. I had an assistant that called it my old man hobby, and you know what? I'm an old man now, so I'm good with that. I'm fine at this point. But no, I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully everybody gets something out of this. And best of luck
Sure.
to you and your team with the project. I think it'll be really interesting to follow. You've posted some great pictures so far.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me, and also thanks for the product that will be helping out with that renovation.
Oh,
So,
it's my pleasure. I'm glad to hear that it's working out well. All right. For everybody else, hope
yep.
you're subscribing so that you get our regular weekly updates. And thanks again for listening.